Good evening, and a very warm welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and our Monday night roundup here, reviewing the weekend's action. I'm Chris Bell, and as always, I'm joined by our Huddersfield Town correspondent, Steve Downs, our Halifax Town correspondent, Dave Foy, our Bradford City man, Gareth Walker, and our Mr. Non-League, Lewis Sale. How are you, gents? You all right?
Good, mate, thanks.
Not bad.
Yes, not too bad. We are also joined, as you will notice, by a special guest to get us started tonight, Rzan Muhammad, who is the manager of Albion Sports in the Northern Counties East League Premier Division. Thanks for joining us, Riz.
Thanks for having us.
I
definitely felt special when you introduced me as a special guest.
Well, compared to the usual rabble that I have to contend with, it's good to have a guest on. So, yeah, it's good to have you on. I mean, for those that, for a start, maybe don't know too much about Albion Sports, but follow the likes of Bradford City or the EFL clubs. Tell everyone a little bit about the club for a start, how long you've been there, the background, and then go on to the season that you've had.
Yeah, so Albion Sports is probably one of about 10 non-league clubs based in and around Bradford. As you mentioned, we play in the Northern East Counties Premier Division. Historically, it actually started off as a Sunday League football club, predominantly promoting players from the South Asian background, really, just to compete. Now, they had a lot of success on the Sundays. They reached 2 national FA Cup finals, FA Sunday Cup finals, I should say, won multiple league titles and county cups and district cups, etc. The normal things that you would compete for on a Sunday under a very successful manager, probably a little bit before my time, was Kully Sandhu. They decided to obviously transfer over and have an attempt at Saturday football probably about 12 years ago. Started off as a grassroots Step 7 team and eventually got promoted into Step 6. I think they got promoted in their second year. And ever since then, we've been competing in the Northern Counties East. Obviously, we're probably one of the only teams. Well, I think we are the only team in our division that actually don't have our own ground. So this season we ground share with obviously Bradford Park Avenue. Previously, we played at Farsley Celtic at the Citadel. So I think that's probably one of the biggest barriers that we face in the fact that we don't have our own home to the infrastructure to build on that. Obviously, there are plans in motion to try and develop that. That's one of the things that we've been working towards, trying to build the club's infrastructure. So that's about it, really.
This season, then, Riz, obviously be delighted to get in the playoffs, and it's not normally the situation where you've probably finished your season and your run of games and you're kind of hoping and cheering on other teams, but it's a bit nail-biting, wasn't it? And last Wednesday was your place confirmed.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously, when I first came in, which was 3 seasons ago, so about 2.5 years ago now, I think our aim predominantly was to stay in the league and avoid relegation. Obviously, within that first half season, it was probably one of the most difficult jobs and difficult experiences I've ever had in my life. I don't want to kind of go through that experience again, but we kind of knew it's a little bit different how relegation system works. At Step 5 and Step 6, you can get a reprieve on a points per game scenario, and I think it was we beat Silsden and reached the 31 point mark, if I'm stand corrected. And I think deep down in my heart, I kind of knew that we weren't going to get kind of relegated anyway. But going in just to cement that, we went into the last game of the season, Barton away, and as long as we don't lose by 5 goals or even secure a point, we'd definitely be safe. And knowing our luck, we actually absolutely got battered and lost 5-0. So it was a kind of a similar experience, obviously, this season. So it's been a massive, drastic turnaround. This season, we obviously went into the season after a good season last year, mid-table finish. We wanted to see if we can, and the players said it themselves, the objective is, can we potentially get into the playoffs? We've done it, but then obviously it's not as simple as that, and Penistone had a very good, strong finish to the season, to be fair. So we had to sit around and wait. Well, we would have been waiting for almost, I think it's about 18 days or something to find out. But yeah, I think obviously they had to win every single game. I think it would have been 5 or 6 games in a row. And I said it to everyone. I said, if a team wins 5 or 6 games on the bounce in this league, they deserve the playoffs. Unfortunately for us, obviously they weren't able to do that, and dropped a couple of points, drew against Knaresborough, which cemented our place, and I think they lost on the weekend, to be fair. So I actually put my phone on flight mode and stuck it on charge and tried to watch box sets, and I actually went for a walk around. I don't live far from Lister Park, but I went for a little walk around the park and hoping I'll come back to some good news. So yeah, it worked out in our favour.
Great news. And in terms of beginning of the season as well, as kind of the first year, as you mentioned earlier, ground sharing at Bradford Park Avenue, being honest, completely different playing surface to what you may have been used to at Farsley Celtic over the years. How have you had to adapt in terms of recruitment and your style of football from what you've probably previously been playing to where you have done this season?
Probably suits my style in terms of what I try to do and try to bring out of the players. I do want players to get on the ball. I do want them to be brave and see if we can, try to create chances, and it helps us. It helps you control games. So I knew it would benefit definitely my style of play. In terms of recruitment, I thought we did very, very well in the summer in terms of the experience and the players we brought in, and we got off to an absolute flying start, and we proved that in the FA Cup run that we had, in the even in the FA Vars run that we had. So I think it was going to be a challenge, but knowing that I kind of set it in stone early, it was myself and people from Bradford Park Avenue that kind of, before I put it to the club, that it was myself that kind of materialised the move to Bradford Park Avenue, because I knew that the players that I'd be able to bring in would suit that surface, to be fair.
So, obviously Saturday, big game, being big as the Battle of Bradford. Don't worry, Riz, we were trying to get the guys from Campion head-to-head, but obviously we didn't want to kind of create a scene for everyone. But obviously that's going to be, it's a huge game, isn't it, for both teams. I think obviously this season you've drawn against them away, and unfortunately a few weeks ago suffered a 4-1 defeat, but it's that old cliche, and form goes out the window and it comes down to one game over 90 minutes.
Yeah, no, I think Campion are a very good team. People don't realise it. It's not necessarily Ashford, but with Bicknell, myself and Bicknell, we have a rivalry that goes kind of, not, I wouldn't say a rivalry, it is a bit more of a friendly rivalry, but we've both, obviously, I can speak about myself, I've not necessarily played up at a very high level or anything like that. I've not come out of the professional game or had an immense career through non-league. I've more done it from grassroots up, working through local football, Sunday league, and that's where I first ever got my management. And I was used to it back then. That's when obviously Bicknell used to be managing on a Sunday, and they used to batter us every single week because he had an unbelievable team, to be fair. But I think that kind of rivalry goes way back. I've got a lot of respect for them at Campion. Obviously Bradford is not a huge town, and we're literally a stone throw away from each other. The players all know each other. I was there this weekend just watching a cup final on the Sunday, and I seen all the committee, and I was speaking to them and having a bit of banter with them. They've done really well over the last 2 years. They've done unbelievably well. Obviously, they've got a base. They're growing the infrastructure the right way. They're growing the club. They're doing things what any club would want to do. So yeah, I think there is that little bit of rivalry there. I think it's good for the city as well. It's good for the catchment area. It's good for the town, considering that there's guaranteed going to be a Bradford team in the final. So that's obviously a positive, I guess.
100%. You talked about building a base there. One of our regular contributors, Ian's asked a question as well for you, is if Albion were to get their own ground, is there a particular Bradford back you'd favour? I know you said earlier there's hopefully plans in motion, and obviously there might be some stuff which you might not be able to say as if it's confidential, but what is that looking like from what you can speak about at the moment?
Yeah, I think so. Predominantly, Albion have always been based around the BD3, BD4 area. That's where the kind of roots are. That's where the players have predominantly come from historically. And, you're talking about players from Bailey, Homewood, all these estates around that area. And it's not so long ago, actually, that it came out, obviously, in the paper that the plans have actually gone into motion in partnership with the Bradford Council for a development of a ground at Lower Lane, which is kind of in the heart of all these different kind of communities. So that's the area that obviously they're looking to be based, really. That's where predominantly of our fans are from. That's where the couple that we do have, but that's predominantly where a lot of the people associated with the club are not far from there, from Tysel, East Bowling, West Bowling, East Bailey, all that area is predominantly where the people that come to watch us. So yeah, that's where we'd be based around there.
Brilliant. Final question is, before we let you go and prepare for this week's game, what does this week look like for you as manager of Albion Sports? Training wise, preparation, is anything different you're going to do ahead of Saturday?
Well, obviously it's a little bit different for us because I think Campion played their last game probably only 6 or 7 days ago. We haven't played since the 6th of April. So, the lads have been on the jollies and doing whatever they want, and we were kind of in the abyss as to know what's going on. They had to delay the holidays. I couldn't really make any plans. So I didn't really want to put too much pressure. I kind of downplayed it. Started saying to my wife, let's start looking at holidays and things like that. But, you kind of try to take
but she's really happy with you now, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's, for some reason, she said, you keep avoiding these weekends for some reason. So deep down in my heart, I was hoping and praying. But yeah, I think obviously slightly different. We've not done anything. So we've been in, hopefully getting them in a couple of times this week. Big thanks, obviously, to we've got an agreement with Carvley Football Club, who have it's a local grassroots club, but who have allowed us to actually use their facility and their training ground for us to train over the next couple of days. Slightly different to obviously what we've been training on. We're going to be playing on a grass pitch, so we've not played much. Probably played about 15, 16 games this season on a grass pitch. We've not been training on a grass pitch all season, so slightly different for us in that sense. So just trying to get them on grass as much as we can and get the legs going again and take it from there, really, then have the headache of picking a squad.
Amazing. Well, like I say, we'll let you go, Riz. Thanks so much for joining us over the past quarter of an hour. We've really appreciate your time, and yeah, I'll be there. I'll come and say hello.
One more thing. I mean, should it happen, should you be able to pull it off and get that promotion, I'm going to, make Lewis...
I know what's coming here. I know what's happening.
Because Lewis, as a Bradford Park Avenue fan, what would it mean, Riz, though, just to be able to get up into that kind of Northern Premier League East Division? To be fair, there's big clubs across the that region, and of course, you'll be the noisy neighbours in Bradford Park Avenue's own stadium.
Listen, Riz, don't tempt fate, Riz. It's fine. If you need to go, mate, it's absolutely fine. We can pick it up afterwards. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, to be fair, it's absolutely mental. And obviously, I follow Bradford Park Avenue quite closely because we're there and follow the show sometimes as much as I can. It's absolutely mental that we'd be playing in the same league as them. Obviously, I don't think it's not great that they've had 2 relegations like on the bounce, but to think a couple of years ago that we'd be playing in the same league as not just Bradford Park Avenue, it would be even the likes of your Ossets and Brighouse, who are decent sized clubs, but then again they may not even be in the league next year. I don't know how it works now. I've not really had a real look at it, but but at the end of the day, I think it's probably, we know in our league in terms of the position that we're in, we're punching above our weight. I think we'd be probably, it's like in combat sports, we're getting the crossover fights now in between, like the UFC and the boxing. I think it's a little bit like that. We don't know what's going to happen, but it's needless to say, regardless of the outcome, whether we get promoted or not, it's definitely something to be proud of, just not from a club point of view, but from the players' point of view, to achieve and to be in and around the mix with the clubs that we are. And, you know, as I mentioned, you know, you've got teams like Hallam who get 500 or 600 fans at their ground. You've got Golka who have got a fantastic infrastructure and get huge amounts of fans. But at the end of the day, results that matter is whether you get 5 fans or 500, doesn't matter. It's what counts is the results on the pitch. So don't get me wrong, it'd be brilliant to play against Park Avenue. We'd love to have that opportunity, but if it doesn't happen, I won't be losing sleep over it. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's still been a season to be proud of, without a doubt, as you say, compared to previous years. Riz, massive thank you for joining us.
Yes, thanks for having us. Thank you very much, guys. See you later.
Yeah, see you later.
See you later.
See you. Rzan Muhammad there, the manager of Albion Sports. And just a reminder for those watching, the Battle of Bradford, as it's being dubbed. And to be fair, it is Campion, based in Manningham, are the host side on Saturday, this Saturday, against Albion Sports in the Northern Counties East League Premier Division semi-final. It's a bit of a tongue twister, that one, Lewis, but ultimately it's going to be a cracking game because it's two good footballing sides. And also, it's great for the city of Bradford as well. I'll be honest, it's just a shame that Bradford City are at home that day.
Yeah, it is a shame, but I think it's really commendable of the non-league scene in our region at the moment. And I know we do profile and showcase as much as we possibly can in our show and through our social media channels, but to have potentially, you know, 2 teams in the final, like Riz said there's going to be at least probably one team from West Yorkshire in there, whether it's one team from Bradford, and then it's either Garforth or Rossington Main. So it's going to be a big ask for both teams, let's be honest. And I think Riz is probably playing it down a little bit. You know, they're probably not the favourites to win that game. Campion are probably the outstanding favourites with how they've gone through this season, you know, pushing Emily close to the title. But it's going to be a really, really tight game. I think you'll probably get 200-300 people there, if I'm being honest. Like I say, I'm definitely going there myself to watch it. And let's hope that one of them can do the job. And if it's not one of them, then Garforth from our region as well have been exceptional this year. So it's going to be a big test for Riz and the team. But it already sounds like, and this is what we keep on saying about our teams, even at a semi-professional level, that he's putting all the commitment and hard work in early doors. You know, he's talking about getting on a different playing surface rather than not being an artificial, to almost prepare them for that game on Saturdays. You know, it's them small margins that can make all the difference. But Campion will be saying exactly the same as well. You know, I watched them at the weekend against last week against Fackley, 6-3. It was an absolute thriller. It could have ended up 10-7. And that's what Campion are all about. You know, it's almost that Kevin Keeger entertainer style. Will score more one goal in view, but the scoreline doesn't really matter if that's the case. So big game, but it's great to see it, and hopefully people are able to get there and support it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you might also have noticed that our usual Leeds United-based contingent are missing for this one. That's because they're going to be on tonight from 10 o'clock. After the Leeds United game tonight, we're, of course, taking on Middlesbrough as we speak. I believe Leeds have gone 2-1 up in that one. I think Steve has been trying to keep us up to date on that one in the private chat.
Yeah, it was. It was Borough took the lead through well, Jay's already called it an unlucky goal for Leeds. It wasn't. It was crap goalkeeping. But then Leeds drew level with it was a definite penalty. Borough conceded, and then they've just gone 2-1 up with Bamford, who it was terrible goalkeeping again by the Borough keeper, but Bamford bet him to the ball and stuck it away, and Leeds are now 2-1 up.
Just for everybody listening and watching, Bamford scored, and I'm no doubt Jay would have been celebrating like absolutely crazy Leeds fan at that one as well, because we all know that Jay's a massive Bamford fan. So yeah,
we did try to entice both Steve and Jay to join us on the stream. To be honest, to do it almost a bit like a watch along. They weren't having it. It's fair to say. We're going to turn our attention.
Cowards.
Some cowards. Before we kind of turn our attentions to focusing on the club sides, we just want to have a little bit of a discussion because, well, I don't know how much discussion it's going to be because we're all on the same page here. Of course, over the course of the weekend and the back end last week, the news regarding the FA Cup and the scrapping of FA Cup replays from the first round onwards from next season was announced, and that, for me as a lower league supporter through my entire life, is a massive catastrophe. Some of the great games that I can remember from growing up as a kid to more recent years have been these cup replays. And I mean, come on, I don't know who wants to start first. I imagine you'll all chip in at the same time, but go on, somebody take the lead on this one. We're all unanimously against this abhorrent decision, as is, it seems, the majority of the wider football community.
Yeah, I'll jump in. I think it's an absolute disgrace, to be honest, with how it's been all handled. I'm not just cross at the fact that they've got rid of replays. I'm cross at the fact of the way that, you know, it's all been discussed, to be honest. The fact that the Premier League and FA have come up with a little backroom deal between themselves and entirely cut out 72 teams, the backbone of English football, and our pyramid, and the fact that they've just cut them out, and also the National League to have the whim of 20 clubs. And let's be fair, it's not even 20 clubs. It's probably 6 clubs. Is an absolute disgrace. And, you know, it's about time, I think, football fans started to stand up. I mean, to be honest, like the FA, they couldn't run a bath. It's just pathetic. I've never seen a football association be so crap at their own running of their own game. Like the fact that they can't stand up to people like the Premier League just infuriates me. And I think, you know, the FA Cup's such a glorious competition, you know, hundreds of years of history in terms of the way it's been run. And it's just a poor deal. And I say that as a lower league fan now as well.
Yeah, Ryan.
Sorry, go on, Chris. It's all right, it's fine.
Ryan's comment there is on more than 72 teams. Really, every team that enters the competition should get some sort of say. And this was a point that we had in the group chat. I know over the weekend, I think a point that I made was, you know, you're talking somewhere in the region between 7 and 750 teams every year enter the FA Cup. And this decision has been made off the back of, well, by the Premier League and the FA. But primarily, as we say, probably you're looking maybe a top 8 perhaps that might actually have wanted this to have gone through.
You're looking at less than 1%, Chris. That's all I were going to add. I think the exact number's about, is it something like 734 enter? That was all I was going to say when I tried to talk over you. Yeah, sorry.
No, it changed on you. And this is the thing, to be in the situation where such a minute percentage, less than 1% of the clubs that actually partake in the FA Cup, in cahoots with the Premier League and the FA, have got this say, because it's just, I'm going to drop it, it's just shitting on tradition.
Yeah, it is. It is, I agree.
Yeah, Does anyone else have an opposite view, by the way?
No, the two people that have the opposite view are not here because they're watching Leeds.
You know what?
I'd like to make it a third.
I am going to defend Jay and this, because they weren't fully the opposite view at all. No. Jay actually was quite a lot on kind of sharing our opinions. He was just also loves playing devil's advocate from time to time, does Jay. That's his problem. Gaz, I mean, look, at one time, Bradford City were Premier League, but it's not been that way for some time. But, you know, it's always special, and you get those opportunities. And even if it doesn't happen that often, it's still an amazing moment when those opportunities come along to get the replay, either a big boy back to your place, or you get to go to a massive stadium like Old Trafford or the Emirates or wherever.
Yeah, I'm not aware for a while of Bradford having a replay, but just the fact that we've had success in the Cup over the last 10, 15 years against the bigger sides at Bradford and also away at Chelsea and Villa, you know, it's a special day for teams that are lower down the pyramid. As somebody who sort of was born in the 80s and grew up through the late 80s, early 90s, and I remember the FA Cup being a lot more, well, I say a lot more special. It still is special to some people, but when the FA Cup final was on, coverage used to start in the morning and it'd last all the way through till tea time, till after the game finished. You had the big one for me was when they took semi-finals away from neutral grounds. Who can forget how brilliant it was to see semi-finals at Villa Park, Hillsborough, Old Trafford, Main Road, Highbury. it was just fantastic. And this just feels like another nail in the coffin, really. It feels like the priorities have shifted for those at the top. Obviously, they've been shifting a long time, but it's all money driven. Where can they get the most money? They get the most money in Europe. They probably look at the European leagues and they see that the European leagues, your Germanys, your Spains, your Frances, they do a lot more. I think they do a lot more to help their top clubs over there than we do, in the respect that when they have a game in Europe, they get sometimes they'll get the situation where the league game before it will be cancelled, so that they have longer to prepare for a European game. But over here, we have a responsibility to the lower league teams, and to see their sort of cares and their priorities sort of disregarded by a top six cartel as it's becoming. It's just sad. It's just a sad indictment of what the game's becoming in this country, and a lot of us are traditionalists, and a lot of us miss how the game used to be. And I'm just sad, really. I'm just really, really sad about it.
And guys,
and speaking of the big six, I mean, I said it at the time, and we were talking about it, me and my friends this weekend. If they want to live like that, and they want to have different priorities, and they want to sort of run the game and do their own thing, I'd let them go.
I would, Gas.
Let them have the Super League. Let them go, but they're not coming back.
No,
they're not coming back. Once they've gone, that's it. They don't come back. They go and they do their own thing, and we forget about them, and we act as two separate entities. Let them go.
You see, what UEFA don't like is as well. Sorry for jumping in, but what UEFA don't like is the fact that we have a League Cup in this country, which most European countries don't. And the League Cup has been it's not as historic as the FA Cup, but it's a very, very valuable competition in this country for particularly EFL clubs, I think, because it's a chance for them to sort of get crowds in the early rounds, particularly your League Two clubs, especially, and UEFA hate the fact that we've got this League Cup. And do you know what as well? What really does maiden is the fact that they've added 2 more games to the Champions League, so that automatically means we have to devalue our own competition by getting rid of replays. And the fact that the FA, which the cup is named after, by the way, can't stand up for their own competition, it really, really makes me sad, the state of the game that we're in, and the fact that we've got a football association that can't be bothered to stand up for its own competition.
I think there's also, and listen, my thoughts on it, I just 100% disagree with it. But I think what's also quite a scary point is that clubs sometimes are hoping for FA Cup replays to help them financially. That some teams are maybe factoring that into the way that they run their club. And because of this has happened, clubs are now going, well, what does that mean for us financially? If we get to replay, that deducts so-and-so from the budget. That might mean we might lose on so-and-so. So actually, it becomes quite a dependency, which is a really worrying thing for me for some of these lower league clubs. And for me, those clubs should be heavily compensated. And this is really, and I agree, guys, 100% agree. I'm really emotional about FA Cup. I love it. I love it to pieces. I love what it stands for. I get it. I 100% get it. But if you are going to get rid of it, make sure that those clubs who are not going to be benefiting from this potential situation are decently compensated, because by chucking 33 million is not enough to sort this issue out. We're talking almost triple and the rest to make sure that those funds are compensated for these clubs. You might potentially talk about the non-league clubs who are very rarely going to get to a first round replay, second round replay, even though the hope is there. Why not double, triple the prize money in the FA trophies and the FA Vars to make that a bit more enticing for them clubs to go through and really try and prosper, to give them a reward at the end of it? But at the moment, by just throwing £33 million at it and saying, oh, by the way, we're not doing replays, it's just not good enough.
It breaks down, doesn't it? I think around £330,000 or £350,000, I think, per EFL club. But obviously, again, as we said before, it's not just about the EFL clubs, is it? It's, you look at your Manchester United this season alone that got to the 5th round, that went through, 4th qualifying rounds and then 5 rounds. It's not all about the EFL side. So I just don't understand fully if they're going to, throw 33 million at it to kind of compensate. How actually is that going to be split? In what way, in what circumstances does that become a fair split when you consider the amount of clubs that are entering the competition?
But Chris, what they've done is they've gone right. The Premier League and FA have met between themselves. They said, right, we're getting rid of FA Cup replays, and the EFL have rightly, by the way. I'm glad that the EFL have got some balls and decided to stand up to them and put out quite strongly worded statements. Really, for them, I think Rick Parry is doing his best, and they've said, well, hang on, what about the broadcast deal that you're supposed to be giving us with the extra funds there? What's happening with that money? Because clearly you're taking away the FA Cup replays with one hand, but you're not giving us the broadcast money with the other. You're not even saying anything about that. And the other point is, like Lou says about, I mean, the only thing I disagree, Lou, is the fact that clubs shouldn't be hoping to run on FA Cup replays. I think that isn't good financially if clubs are doing that. But I accept why clubs do it. But you look at Emily like this season, right? A club in our area, Emily got through 4 qualifying rounds and played one of the biggest games that they've had for a number of years in a cup tie that meant the world to them supporters at the time. Yeah, they had to play 5-6 extra games, but if you go back and speak to Richard Tracy and say, "Oh, you won't have any of them FA Cup games," then do you know what I mean? He'd say no chance.
I agree, Stephen. My point, you're right, but my point is, I'm not saying, I know Ian's comment, I'm not saying clubs budget for that to happen because it's so unpredictable. But if you're a sensible business person who runs a club, there is a possibility that you might get to a replay that might mean that you get X amount, which could potentially be factored into that budget. And now that's disappeared, that's gone. And Ryan makes a really, and I want to make a point of Ryan's made a comment, and it's something I wanted to pick up on as well. Yeah. And he makes a really, really valid point. The fact that this is brought in really when the professional clubs, this isn't semi-pro, non-league clubs brought in. So all the other, extra preliminary rounds of preliminary, you can still have your replays, so these guys will work full-time, part-time. They draw 1-1, they've still got to replay. The clubs have still got the cost of, travel, paying the players, all that kind of, making sure the grounds are up to standard and, security and all that kind of stuff. That's still got to happen. But come first round, we're just going to get rid of it. So how is this help? This isn't really helping grassroots football or clubs at a lower level. And like Gaz made a really fair point of protecting the pyramid that we absolutely pride ourselves in this country for. And I think that's where it just falls down. And yes, there's a commercial element to it, but there's such an emotional aspect to the FA Cup that I think has just been completely lost. And the issue is that we talk about the European games that are being brought in. We talk about the money. This seems to have taken over the emotion, which in some respects I appreciate, but there's some stuff you just can't change. I made a point in our group. There's clubs, for instance, all the clubs that we follow don't get VAR at home games in FA Cup. So how is that even fair in the first instance? That's changed as well. So that's not fair when Premier League clubs are getting VAR decisions or opportunities in games that can affect decisions. We only have to look at the FA Cup, for instance, on Saturday. Coventry don't get VAR. It's semi-final. They get VAR. We know what happened in the final whistle there. So the cup competition, which is integral to our English football system, is being devalued and devalued again. And it wouldn't surprise me in 50 years' time, this competition looks a whole lot different. It really doesn't surprise me if that would be the case.
It wouldn't surprise me, Lou, if the Championship is the top league in the English football pyramid. Because I think the Premier League will just decide to eventually go off on their own. Because that's what they want to do. And they are panicking, by the way, that a football regulator is coming in. To be paying for online adverts on all social media channels to say that they don't want a football regulator. They are panicking like mad.
I do get that impression for sure. Just wanted to kind of touch on a couple more points before we kind of wrap up the FA Cup stuff in particular. The fixture congestion point that was at the end of Ryan's point just there. Oh, I mean, was it just me or were the rest of you absolutely fuming at Pep Guardiola's downright cheek? His post-match interview when he was saying, how bad it was that they played Real Madrid 3 days previous to an FA Cup semi-final. Now, with the squads that they have,
1,000 kids in their academy, Chris. Don't forget that.
Say again, sorry.
They've got 1,000 kids in their academy. Honestly, 1,000 kids.
I mean, I've seen Manchester City's under-18s play a couple of times this season covering FA Youth Cup games. There's some ridiculous talent in there. But that's not even like the top level of their academy system. They've got an under-21s and under-23 side. There is so much talent in their squads. This whole fixture congestion thing, though, is just such absolute nonsense at the top level. Because, again, in the non-league system, look at Colne FC. Like, I think me and Lewis are going to go across to their game in North West Counties tomorrow. They've had 10 games in about the space of, what was it, 20, 24 days, something like that, Lewis?
Yeah.
And they have jobs. They are part-time players that go to it, they come home. Are they complaining about it? Are they buggery? And yet you've got Pep with these well-paid, well-compensated athletes that train for a few hours a day and then go home and do whatever they want, spend some time in the gym, and then have to play every 3 days. Oh, how dare they?
I don't agree with him at all, but I think what they look at it is they look at it from a different angle to what we look at it from. They look at it as what they're competing against. They look at other countries in Europe, and they say, "Well, this is why do we have to do this when Real Madrid or Barcelona or Juventus or whatever don't have to?" That's what that's the angle they're coming at it from. We're coming at it from, we don't care about what your priorities are. We care about the football pyramid in this country. So I think I don't agree with him, but he's looking at it from a different angle to what we're looking at it from.
There's a simple solution, Gaz. Go and manage in a country that you haven't got a football pyramid in there.
Yeah.
That's my solution. Go manage in France for PSG, where you play about 18 games a season.
Yeah.
But this is the one thing for me is just this squad rotation thing is absolute nonsense, and also the fact that especially for the absolute downright cheek of Manchester City and Liverpool's and the top clubs that have got absolutely top class, world class level academies, if they are that arsed about player fatigue, you would rotate your squad more. Do you remember the Premier League game? I think it might have been. It was either Ian Holloway when he was at Blackpool. Or it was a game that Mick McCarthy managed at Old Trafford. And it was a Premier League game, and he rotated his squad and played like 10, what you class as second-string players.
It was Mick McCarthy at Old Trafford.
Everyone moaned at him.
Yeah.
Like, why? It's what you have a squad for. This is why Manchester City have world-class under-23s and under-21s, because they've got the best young talent in the world. If they are that arsed about having to rest players for an FA Cup tie away at Crawley on a Saturday afternoon, then brought the youngsters out. And yes, I appreciate the argument of, oh, well, that'll devalue the competition. But it's a far less way of devaluing the competition than by what they're doing by scrapping the replays and literally ruining the competition
but
600 odd clubs that enter in the first place.
Yeah, and also I do want to mention Dave, because I know he's not spoke for about 20 minutes, but I think, you know, the fact that Halifax have had about 7,962 fixtures cancelled because of the pitch, you know, and Guardiola's players are literally playing on laden golden lead carpets of green, you know, just absolute perfection compared to what. Well, they don't have swamp donkeys, but apart from the fact that, you know, Halifax, it's a serious point though, because like how many fixtures this season have had to be rescheduled at the last minute because of the pitch, and yet you don't hear Millington coming out and saying, "No, well, you know, we've got
the opposite.
We've only got a certain amount of squad." I mean, did anybody also see Matt Robbins? He got asked about Guardiola's comments, and he just laughed. And that's Coventry, and they're playing in the Championship, and they're playing on quite decent pitches too. But I just thought, Dave, like I thought of you, like and Halifax and Guardiola, and he's just like opposite end of the scales. If he came to Halifax for a game, I think he'd just walk out the ground. He wouldn't even bother.
Yeah, I mean, Colne have obviously trumped the run that we've been on, but you know, in the space of a week, we're playing potentially 7 or 8 games away from home in a row. I mean, this is in the same week, obviously, as we said, Guardiola's come out with what it is. We've had 2 games at Accrington. We've had to go to Chesterfield, and then I think it was, somebody measured, it was 36 hours later from full-time Oldham. We've travelled 5 hours on a coach down to Eastleigh for a 12:15 kickoff. Obviously, we'll talk about that a bit later when we get onto my section. But they've gone and done the business, And as Steve's touched on, not once, I don't think once, has Chris Millington complained about the situation. I know I didn't personally have the programme in my hand, but I know David Bosworth had some strong words regarding the pitch in some of his programme notes prior to the York City game, which would have been our final home game on the Shea Turf, a game that was rescheduled from a Monday to a Tuesday. I mean, I went down to the Shea today to unfortunately refund my Oldham tickets because I couldn't make Thursday, and it was raining. And I turned to my dad and I said, imagine if this playoff game were on Wednesday, it'd be off now, because that's the state of the pitch at the minute. I don't really have a lot more to add because I'm only going to talk about stuff that I would talk about later once you come to me. But yeah, just going back to it, credit to Chris Millington for just never really letting it become a proper issue. Like, he's never let it detract from what the club have done. And hindsight's always 20/20, and thankfully we've got into those top 7 by hook or by crook. Southend had 10 points knocked off, whatever, we got there.
We will come back to this very, very soon. One final thought from me on this FA Cup situation is that it's not all about the money. It's not all about the financial benefits of getting a replay for me. It's the memories and the moments. As somebody that has been, I've been at Rochdale games when they were in League One, League Two a couple of years ago, when they had last-minute equalisers against Newcastle United and a replay at St James's Park. I was there when Stephen Davis scored a last-minute equaliser against Tottenham for a replay at Wembley when Spurs were using that as the temporary home.
Of course, yeah.
For Lincoln City, when they were a National League club, they wouldn't have got, or potentially wouldn't have had, that amazing cup run, getting all the way to beating the likes of Brighton and Arsenal and Burnley away, if they hadn't have had that replay against Ipswich in the second round. That wouldn't have happened, and that allowed the club the money from that cup run. Because of that replay, allowed that Lincoln, a club that was nationally dead, to literally invest £1 million and build their own training ground. It's not just about the money, though. It's the memories, moments for the fans that is completely being forgotten in this situation. Like for Rochdale fans, to get those draws against big Premier League clubs at the time and get replays at St James's Park and at Wembley for the Spurs game was unbelievable. It was magic days that don't go along every day. For something that has seen Guiseley get a replay in round 1 against Accrington Stanley to then go and win the replay on penalties, and get to the furthest in the cup competition in their history for Guiseley in the second round, was just amazing for the supporters that were there. And that, for me, is fundamentally what is being forgotten completely out of all of this. It's not just the money; it's the memories for the supporters. It really is.
You raised a good point, and it was just something I wanted to mention quickly before we move on. Was that if you speak to a lot of people, probably our parents' generation, and you ask them what's the most famous FA Cup upset they remember, they'll probably say, or they'll mention Ronnie Radford for Hereford at home to Newcastle. I'd just like to point out that was a replay.
That was a replay, yeah.
Thanks, Gaz.
Could I even play devil's advocate and try and just make a point for just one tie rather than having a replay?
We'll go on.
Right, here we go. Okay, so we'll soon find out how much Pep Guardiola can rotate his squad when they're taken to extra time and it's one leg and he's got a bench that's half the stand and he can just pick out whatever. Have we 5 subs in the FA Cup or is it 7?
5, but if it goes to extra time, you get a 6th.
I bet he'll soon be rotating his squad then. But imagine it. I don't know. You somehow get through it all. You get through extra time and you beat somebody on penalties. I mean, I know it's not like you've got a replay and you win. Imagine beating Man United on penalties or whoever at your own ground or even at their ground. There's still excitement there. I know it's not the replay, but you could... you've taken Man United or whoever. I mean, Man United aren't Man United proper anymore, are they? You've took Man City to 120 minutes and it's 2-2 and you beat them on penalties. I think you'd still get the same excitement as going to a replay. The thing is, you don't get the money from the split gate.
Honestly, that Accrington Stanley away game that I went to with guys on Tuesday night, first round replay, and it was one of those games with adversity in it. It was 2-2 after extra time. If the guys to win on penalties was just one of those special nights I've had. It was absolutely superb in that situation. And I've seen a lot of arguments as well, by the way. It's not just about going to go to the big grounds, because I've seen people say, oh, well, if the smaller club gets drawn out as home and it's drawn away at, Man United at their place, they should get the option to switch it. That, for me, is a bollocks argument as well, because that's not how the draw works.
No, that is not how it works. No, it's not.
I feel like
I want to put devil's advocate there. I quite like that idea, but only because they're getting rid of replays. But I understand that, you're quite ferocious in your argument, so it's not a hill that I'm ready to die on. So I
feel like this could well be something that, in the greatest scheme of things, is going to kind of drag on and on. I mean,
one thing we haven't touched on, sorry, Chris, just to cut you off, I just remembered, I believe the National League have officially supported the scrapping of replays, which is a bit of a shock, because you've got the sandwich of Premier League like, yep, great. EFL have been like, no, thank you. And then National League are like, yeah, get rid of it.
I don't understand. I cannot possibly fathom
why,
what way, shape or form. I mean, don't get me wrong, and we are going to come on to the National League's absolute ineptness at how crap they are as an organisation later on. But I just cannot fathom how the National League can, again, crap all over its 24 National League clubs and the 48 National League North and South and say, yeah, we're fine with this. And as I say, I feel like this is something that's going to rage on and on for weeks and weeks to come. And it will be interesting to see just what happens. Now, we're not going to spend too long dissecting all the club stuff. I mean, Steve is going to be delighted with that, because we're going to start with him and move on to Huddersfield Town. And, Steve, do you want me to ask you, what you had for tea, what your plans are for the summer, anything but ask you about what the hell happened at the John Smith Stadium on Saturday?
Yeah, I had a lovely Chinese on Saturday night. It was fantastic. You see, even Lou's turned off now. That's how bored Lou is of the conversation. Pizza for Sunday. No, go on then. Go on. I think you've got some questions, and then Gaz has got some money.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'll just take the first one. What the hell went wrong?
What went wrong? We were crap. That's what went wrong. We threw the towel in at 2-0 and decided, do you know what? If we're going to get relegated, let's get relegated in style, baby. Yeah, 4-0 loss to Swansea. Defending that wouldn't be seen on the 5th of May at Bradford Park Avenue. Come and watch us, by the way, if you want to see some fantastic football played. Yeah, it was just terrible, Chris. Honestly, I sat there. The fourth goal went in, and I laughed. And actually, the lad behind me, I've got to give him a shout out, because he's ripped Bet365 off. He put a £25 bet on for Town to lose 4-0 when they were attacking. When Swansea were attacking to go score the fourth, he put a £25 bet on, and they scored 3 seconds later, and he won the bet. He won £200. So fair play to him. He knew it was going to happen. The collapse was disgusting. The collapse was disgusting, and that fixture itself relegated us. I mean, I know that we're going to come on to playing Birmingham this week, and what a massive fixture it is, but I honestly left the ground and I thought, that's it, finished. I'm looking forward to Wrexham away next year.
Sheffield Wednesday winning the next day has obviously put another nail in that coffin. I mean, I know they beat Blackburn, who were down there, but that's certainly not going to help off the back of that,
Mate, when the Wednesday result happened, I just thought that's just been typical of the last couple of weeks, to be honest. The results going against us not turning up. It's just been the same for 5-6 weeks, and
the thing is, Huddersfield could have had that same bounce that Wednesday had when they appointed a German coach. I mean, they were coming off the back of the 2 or 3 game run under Jonathan Worthington, where they had an unexpected win. Sorry, I can't remember who it was against. They beat, was it Wednesday, actually?
We beat Wednesday for
yeah. And we were obviously at Emley and we were following events down at St. Mary's. You know what I mean? He came in off the back of, we're a bit like, they're taking the time over who they're going to appoint. But he come in off a club that had that little bit of a bounce. And it could have gone that way. He could have come in and been a success, like Wednesday's manager. I can't remember his name. He's come in and Wednesday have had this like bounce under him. I mean, Leeds only just managed to really beat him. I mean, they scored the first goal and were comfortable, 5-6 weeks ago. But Wednesday held them for like that could have been Huddersfield. In another world, that could have been Huddersfield. And it just hasn't seemed to have worked out. Maybe it's time to, smash the emergency glass and press the Jonathan Worthington button again. I mean, it depends if you want to do, I mean, somebody said on Radio Leeds earlier that they've had 4 managers this year.
I think it's too late. It's too late, Dave. Like, what's the? Really he's too late. Just and I'll come on to. I don't know what questions Gaz has, but basically
they've all been asked now by Chris and Dave. So there's any points, to be honest.
Go on, Gaz. Think of some more on the spot. No, it's basically after the game, Brian Wright came out and he was asked directly by Paul Ogden of Radio Leeds, will you be here next season? And Brian Wright went, conversations will have to happen in the next few weeks. After the game,
that's the stock manager response, though, really, isn't it? In the situation.
Nah. He's going. Right. He's going.
The question for you though is, if Brighton Wright was happy to stay, where do the fans stand with Brighton Wright? Is there still a sense of, look, he's working with his hands tied, it's not his squad, so they'd be happy to give him the chance in League One? Or is there a section that are like, this has been awful, he's shown nothing to suggest he'll take us forward regardless of what league we're in, get rid?
No, so basically the fan base is, I think, that just apathetic and depressed with the whole thing, that they just know that Brian Wright has got no League One knowledge. He knows the league even less than, the managers that we've had before. He can't bring any foreign exports in from Germany because A, of Brexit, but B, because they probably won't want to come in to play in League One. So, that is a problem. Now, on the other hand, you have to say, yes, he's not had really his own squad to work with, but he has made mistakes over the last couple of games. Like, why did we go into Swansea and not play a striker? We've played Bergsorg for the last 5 games up front, and it's not worked. I'm more of a striker than Bergsorg is.
Sorry.
No, it's true. It's true, though. It's just despicable. But you can't wait for me to be on the pitch.
I'm not having you pitch on me. Mate. Let's get back to Hoods.
It'll be hat-trick. It was bad. And against Swansea, a good sort of expression was is that Brian Wright likes to play a pressing game. Yeah, that's what he's known for. In all of his teams, he's tries to play the gegenpressing style, right, to some extent. The only person that was pressing on Saturday was Rodoni, and he plays in midfield. Like, I can't sort of say how frustrating that is, that you've got Thomas on the left who doesn't. He presses at some points, but then can't be bothered to do it at others. Bergsorg trots up and down like My Little Pony, who can't be bothered. You've got Karoma on the right, who, has had one good season in 4 and missed an absolute sitter. And nobody's doing the press. And then because Rodoni does the press, you've got Kasumu and Matos sat in a centre defensive midfield who are sat on the centre-back's toes. So there's about 17 fields of space for somebody like Matt Grimes to operate in, who can pick a pass and slide balls left, right and centre down the wings. And it's just, it was just an absolutely nonsensical performance. He took Spencer off when he was the best player on the pitch, and the club's just a mess now. So, Kevin came out. Sorry,
go on. Carry on.
Last point. Kevin put out a tweet saying that there'll be some information coming out this week to do with Town. Now, What does that mean? Does that mean Brian Wright is not taking the last 2 games? Does that mean he is, but after them last 2 games he's going? Are they going to release season ticket prices, which apparently they're going to put up? My God, I can't wait for the reaction on Wednesday when the season ticket prices go up to. Do you know what? Fans, you can pay £350 to come and watch us play Stockport at home, which you haven't played since 2009. Fantastic.
If there's information to come, Steve, what do you expect it will be?
I think it'll be season ticket prices. I think it'll be season ticket prices, Chris.
Yeah.
They haven't got them out yet. Most clubs have already sold about 1,500 tickets of theirs. And that's all we got. That's all because they don't know which division they're in. Sorry, guys, go on.
You've talked about the players and you've talked about the manager, Steve. Where do the fans feel? You know, like you put in the group chat about like they were singing "You're not fit to wear the shirt," and we saw the video at Preston with a player arguing with the fans, and where the players have shown that they can do it because they've shown under Worthington that they can do it. Do you think that if Worthington had stayed, do you think you'd be safe now?
They couldn't have played like under Worthy for the entire time. I do actually agree with going back to Lou's point all them weeks ago when, you know, we were sort of, it was ping pong ball really, Gaz. You know, when me and Dave were up at Emley and we went 2-0 up against Southampton and then they brought it back to 2-2 and, you know, it was absolute ping pong sort of football, and I don't think we'd have managed to we'd have got some absolute whoopings if we'd have played under Worthy. I mean, we've had some whoopings anyway, by the way, but
yeah,
I think the problem is, guys, right? We've gone through that many managers now that you can't not blame the managers now. I think it's the players. This squad has come to the end of its tether. They're tired from battling 10 seasons out of 12. There's some of these lads that aren't good enough. They're just not good enough for the Championship. And unfortunately, a lot of this squad think because 2 years ago they got to a playoff final, think they are better than what they are. And they're not. They're very limited footballers, some of them. You know, as much as I like Matty Pearson he puts his effort in and all that, but all he does is every game gets the ball off Hellick and chips it forward into absolute no man's land for Thomas to try and run onto, which inevitably don't work because the ball goes out of play. And that happens at least 6-7 times a game. And you know exactly what's going to happen. And if I know what's going to happen, the opposition will, won't they? So I just think that the fans are just sick and tired of some of these players now, and they've just lost the rag with them, and that's why they were singing "You're not fit to wear the shirt." And by the way, I've supported Town for 15 years, and I've never heard a Town supporter ever sing that. Never.
You're lucky because we sing that at Bradford twice a season.
Oh yeah, well and at Bradford Park Avenue, they've sang that at every game this season. But you know, I just think, you know, we're not the sort of fan base to kick off, and we're now at the end of his tether, and we're just sick and tired of it.
Oh, they can be though, Steve. They really can be. I remember a time in the early 2000s when they went down to the 4th division and they were picketing outside. I don't know what they'd call it, the main stand of what would have been the McAlpine. They wanted, it may have been Ken Davey out.
No, yeah, that was for different reasons, though, mate. That was for entirely different. That was for non-footballing reasons.
I know, but what I'm saying is, I don't think they're that placid. I mean, they were 10, 12, 15 years in League One before they got back to the Championship.
Yeah, but you're having to go back to 2004, Dave. It's like,
oh yeah,
you know
I know that.
I mean?
Yeah, I get it.
Like Leeds fans kick off like if there's a refereeing bad decision that goes against
Leeds.
them.
Leeds are in a totally different stratosphere.
Yeah, but when's they are
think they're the greatest things in sliced bread. There's no point talking about Leeds. They're very, you know what they're like. We've got 2 of them on this show.
We have got 2 of them. Yeah. when Wednesday fans are the same, you know.
Yeah. Wednesday are a bit like that.
I'm saying, like, my point is, you know, you speak to most football fans in the EFL, and they would say Huddersfield Town fan base is quite, you know, acceptable, amenable to most things.
They've won Family Club and stuff quite a lot, haven't they? But I don't really know what to make of that because Millwall seem to win it quite often as well. So I don't know what to take from it. But they have won like Family Club of the Year and stuff.
Millwall, as a lot of clubs are, it's a small minority that tarnish reputation for
right,
the
okay,
rest. Yeah. wrapping up then with Huddersfield, I just want to promote. Sorry, guys, go on.
I was just going to say, you've covered the players and the manager, but how do the fans feel towards the owners at the moment, Steve? Because they are relatively new, and they've had this plan about getting into the Premier League within however many years they said, and it's not really working out. You've gone through a couple of managers. Are they going to be turning on Big Kev soon, or is he sort of safe at the moment?
Oh well, he's safe because he's 4,000 miles away in California. But yeah, he's no. I think the thing is, Gaz, it's a bit like at Birmingham, right? So the Americans get off quite sort of safe because it's people underneath Kev that have caused the problems. You know, Jake Edwards hasn't sorted the stadium issue. Mark Cartwright has been apoplectically crap at bringing in the right manager and the right players. And for me, you know, that needs to be looked at this summer. The football operations side of things needs to be seriously looked at. And it's quite, you know, there needs to be a lot of changes. And I wouldn't say fans are kicking off at Kevin. I think what fans are saying, though, is, look, Kevin, you know, you've had a year now. Yeah. You've got a lot of decisions wrong. You need to start getting some right. And until that, we won't be paying any more money for the season tickets than what we have been paying, because you haven't yet proved the fact that you can run our football club in the manner that we want it to be run. Earlier, I did a show with the Blues Focus podcast, Birmingham City fan, and also the Wednesday Week. I love that name. It's fantastic that we had Sam and Ash on from those podcasts. I know that the Leeds lads did a promotion one a couple of weeks ago, and I thought I'd do a relegation one. I did hope that I was going to be sat there speaking to them after the win against Swansea, but that didn't materialise, so it was a bit more depressing than what I hoped for. Just to clean up the relegation battle, Chris, because I know you want to move on. If Town lose to Birmingham or don't beat Birmingham and Wednesday draw or beat West Brom, Town are officially relegated next weekend. So if you think I'm depressed this weekend, get ready for next weekend.
What do you want to see, Steve, in these last two games? What do you want to see?
What do I want to see? Something different from what I've seen all season, Gaz. But I don't think we're going to get it, mate. I think we'll lose to Birmingham and Ipswich, and the promotion race won't be done. So I think Ipswich will be going out to win, and I just think we'll lose both games. And I won't be surprised if Ipswich beat us 5-6-0. I really hope I'm wrong. But even if we beat Road? Yeah, even if we beat Birmingham, mate, next Saturday, like, we've still got to probably go beat Ipswich on the last day. But do you know what it'd be a Town thing to do? We'd lose against Birmingham in a must-win game and go beat Ipswich and send Leeds up. Honestly, it's such a Town thing to do. But anyway, I'm excited to play Lincoln next season, so that's all that matters. Can't wait to sit in at away end with Chris.
Oh, you'll be lucky. Just a reminder as well, at 10 o'clock, by the way, that our Leeds contingent, Steve and Jay, they'll be doing their own live stream from 10 o'clock. We're looking back at tonight's game against Middlesbrough. Half-time, Middlesbrough 2, Leeds United 3. So quite the game that we're all missing. Not that any of us care anyway.
It was offside, the third goal, apparently.
It was offside.
Tensions then to Bradford City, and for you, Gaz, a cracking win. You had a little trip to the Midlands, didn't you, for yourself at the weekend to the Walsall game. A good win that mathematically keeps you in the playoff hunt. Are you going to be more optimistic now than you were on BBC Radio Leeds earlier on tonight?
No, the key word there is mathematical, Chris. The key word's mathematical, because realistically, I don't think anyone has any serious hopes of getting in that top 7. Obviously, we need to win our last 2 to have any chance, but we also need... Obviously, we play Barrow tomorrow, so we need to beat them. We'd have to then hope that they're lost. I think they're playing Mansfield on the last day, who are already up. You're also wanting Crawley, I think, to take no more than 1 point from their last 2 games. You're wanting Donny to fall off a cliff in their last 2 games when they won 9 on the bounce and lost 1 in 15. Donny, by the way, I mean, bizarre season that they've had there. They were absolutely awful for the first 2/3 of it. They've got beat 5-0 at home, I think, on more than one occasion. and then suddenly turned into 1970s Brazil come the end of March, and are going to get into flipping and going to finish in the top 7.
Grant McCann there.
I think of Bradford though. If ever there was one of those stories of sticking with a manager, you see it every now and then. You look at Doncaster. There was fans that, even though he's Grant McCann has worked at Doncaster before and done well with them, there were fans earlier this season that, understandably on the results and where they were on the table, wanted him gone. Talk about a resurrection story for him this season.
Yeah, I mean, I bang on all the time on this pod about how I'm not for wanting Alexander out, and I think fans have become too used to sacking managers at Bradford, and that's the first thing they grab for when they think anything's not going right. And we've learned over the years, or if you've not learnt by now, I don't know what it's going to take you to learn, that the manager isn't always the problem at Bradford City. You should know that by now. Graham Alexander, the problem that we've had under him, people are happy with the style of play, but like I've said previously, people didn't like Mark Hughes' style of play. The one issue I have with Alexander at the moment is this: he seems to have sort of moved away from the swapping and changing players, which was annoying some people. But at the moment, we've gone through so many different runs. We're on a winning run, then we're on a losing run, then we're on a winning run, then we're on a losing run. There's only him and the players know what is causing that inconsistency. There's only him and the players know what caused us to be absolutely abject for 4 games last month. That is when the playoffs went, when we lost those 4 games back-to-back last month.
Yeah.
We lost at home to Forest Green. We lost at home to Notts County. We got thumped back home by Mansfield. And we were absolutely appalling at Harrogate and lost 3-0. Now, something wasn't right there. And there's only him and the players and the management team and the staff who know what was going on in those 4 games. And the daft thing is that if we'd have won one of those, we'd be on the verge of the top 7 now. And that is a real shame. And next season, we've got to be... I mean, no teams are really consistent in League 2. There's a lot of inconsistency. And that's why the playoff run tends to go down to the wire and anybody can make the top 7. But if you manage to put together any form of consistency, you have a decent chance of getting promoted out of League 2. And we've got to be that team next year. We've got to find out what it is that's going to make us consistent and stop this go undefeated for 4 or 5, then can't win for 8. We need to work out what it is that's stopping that. The other point, other than those 4 games when we got battered 4 times back to back, is the Crawley home game earlier in the year when we were 2-0 up, 2-1 up, with 10 minutes to go, and we lost the game 4-2. Now that is a 6-point swing in Crawley's favour, which is again is going to cost us a playoff place come the end of the season. That 10 minutes, we can ship 3 goals in 10 minutes and lost the game 4-2. That game and the 4-game losing run are what are going to cost us a top 7 place, whether we win these last 2 games or not.
But you can still get there, though, Gaz. Like it's not. I mean, I know I've just said that we're definitely relegated, but you can get there still on points. Like I know it'd take a miracle because there's 3 sides above you, but it's not over.
Well, the thing is, on Saturday as well, we saw the good and the bad of Bradford on Saturday. And like you say, I was at Walsall and I'm going up to Barrow tomorrow night. And Saturday was just a bizarre game, a really bizarre game. The first 20 minutes, Walsall were brilliant. They bullied us. They looked far too strong for us. They were all over us. They went 2-0 up. They could have been more than 2-0 up. I think when we got it back to 2-1, it was against the run of play. And pretty much from the kickoff, they broke away again and they hit the post. And we were right behind the shot and it swerved. And if it had been post had been 2 meters further back, it'd have been nestling in the corner. They could have been 3-1 up. But something happened. I don't know what we did, whether we settled down or what. Probably the second goal helped us settle down again, probably against the run of play. Got it back to 2-2. And then from the moment that the second goal went in to make it 2-2, up until when Jamie Walker got sent off, Jamie Walker was running the game. He was the best player on the pitch. They couldn't handle him. He scored 2. Like I said, Walsall couldn't handle him at all. And then he got sent off. And then from that point onwards, it's back to the wall, and you're clinging on. And to be fair, we defended reasonably well. Sam Walker has been a blinding signing, had an absolute amazing game in goal towards the end of the game, made some fantastic saves. So, it shows that anything can happen and games can change like that, as can seasons. But personally, I just don't see it happening, even if we do win our last 2 games.
You know what, Gaz? Sorry, Chris. I just want to make a point of what Gaz said. We need to clip that, what Gaz said. I think, to be fair, we all do relatively have some opinions, and sometimes we might feel we're right or wrong or other people. But what Gaz said there about Bradford City, I thought was phenomenal. And I think, Gaz, in terms of exactly leaning on to what you said, it's a City thing where you're playing two teams who are bang out of form. Barrow with 4 points out of 6, Newport 0 points out of 6, and you're hoping to go beat them. And knowing City, they might lose them 2 games.
Yeah, we do it all the time, Lou, and from an outsider looking in, there's no one better to play when you're on a terrible run than Bradford City, because we'll turn up and we'll give you 3 points. We do it over and over again. We get to the top of the form table, we play someone down the bottom, and we lose the game. So yeah, you're spot on, and that's why probably I'm negative about the playoffs even more than I would be otherwise, because the 2 teams that we've got left to play are 23rd and 24th in the form table, and I know what happens.
And how scary is it that you've been in this situation where, a month or 2 ago, you have protests outside your ground, everything that's going on, doom and gloom, the world's going to end. And like Steve says, even though realistically I agree with what you said, mathematically, they're still possibly going up. That shows, like you said, the consistency in League 2. You get it right and you nail it, you're in the playoffs next year. Because if you're that close to the playoffs already, this season, what can next season do? And I think with Alexander's track record, he's got that history where he can do that.
Especially at a club like us, because when we get going, we're a hard team to stop. We've shown it before. You get us rolling and we're difficult to stop. We did it under Parkinson. The crowds start coming in, they get behind them. The Valley Parade becomes a really tough place for teams to go, and you just need that little bit of momentum. And again, City fans aren't going to be happy with what I'm about to say now, but I don't think that this squad that we've got is that bad. And I think that sometimes there's something to be said for not ripping it up every summer and not getting rid of 10, 15 players and trying to replace them every summer. And sometimes you just need a little bit of consistency that might end up proving to be what you need going forward to get consistency in results. And I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get rid of as many players as some people want us to this summer. I think there'll be more players kept on than a lot of fans want, and they won't be happy. But I wouldn't be surprised if it proves to be a little bit of a shrewd move next season.
Can the thing I would say though is a joke, kind of like jokingly. You've been negative about the playoffs, Gaz. I mean, what are you saying then? The EFL should scrap them like the FA Cup?
No, not at all.
Is that what we're saying?
No, not at all. I'm a big fan of the playoffs, and it keeps teams involved on it till right at the end of the season. Otherwise it wouldn't have done. Was it like the 80s when they came in, wasn't it? And previous to that, seasons were over from sometime in late February sometimes.
Well, the thing is, Gaz, though, when you're good at the playoffs, like our clubs tend to be, it's fantastic. But then when you have clubs like, Lincoln that are absolutely abysmal and shambolic in the playoffs, it's not nice, is it? Do you know what I mean? I can't believe Chris hadn't created a campaign to get rid of them, to be honest.
These things have to change at some point, Mr. Downs, and if it means we swap places with you in the Championship, then I will happily take that.
I don't think Bradford are either way. I think I've said it before. We're sort of 50-50 when it comes to the playoffs. Sometimes we do quite well and sometimes we don't. I wouldn't say that we're a playoff team and not. I'd just like to mention what Lou said there as well about, the protests outside the ground last month. I think it's worth remembering, and I said at the time, that a few results aren't going to change my opinion on the fact that things need to change behind the scenes at the club.
Okay.
And these results shouldn't change anybody's mind and detract from the fact that things need to change and we need a plan. And the issues that people were protesting about last month are still as relevant today as they were then, even though we've won 4 and drawn 1 of our last 5 games. And I would be keen to know what the pro plan is going forward behind the scenes. I know we've brought in David Sharp. I would like to know what he's doing, basically, what his plan's going to be, what our strategy is going to be moving forward and how he's going to improve us. And I'd like to hear a little bit from him and just sort of, have a bit of a plan, like I've talked about before, and a strategy and an ethos behind us at the club and know what it is, because that is as big a today as it is whether you're getting results or you're not getting results.
Yeah, absolutely.
Gaz is on fire tonight. Absolutely on fire. Love what you said there, Gaz.
Gaz, I'm going to Guys, I'm going to have to clip you up about 7 times this week, mate.
It's because I'm all pumped up. I had all my Huddersfield questions ready, and then I didn't get to ask them, so we're all pumped up, and I've got my Bradford City head on.
I'll be honest, guys. We had that planned, and then Dave and Chris decided to ruin it. So there we go.
Whoa. Anyway, we'll see what happens with Bradford City, of course, over the coming weeks. Enjoy your trip to Barrow tomorrow night, mate. We'll see how that goes.
We'll see. I'll take a few wine gums to improve the journey if it's a loss on the way home.
Might get cancelled again, Gaz.
Oh, mate, don't say that. We've had it done twice already. I don't know when they play it. If they cancelled it again, when would they play it?
Tomorrow, the next day, Thursday. You just have to stay over.
You might need to get yourself a B&B. Anyway, let's leave the EFL behind and turn our attentions then to the West Yorkshire non-league scene. And it's been about as quiet for Halifax Town and the National League this weekend as it has for Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup news, really. Halifax Town, first and foremost, Dave, cracking 3-0 win on the final day of the season away at Eastleigh. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've been to Eastleigh this season. They're crap. They're really not as good. They're really not as good as they should be for the squad they've got. But ultimately, the pressure was all on Halifax to get the result and to secure that final playoff place, and you've done just that.
Yeah, obviously, as you say, Eastleigh, just with the 31 goal a season, Paul McCallum, so he was picking up his golden boot and he's going to get 0 for it, but there you go. Enough said about Eastleigh. I don't really like them. They've been a bit of a bogey team for Halifax in the past, so yeah, not bothered really.
Brilliant. So Eastleigh subscribers have gone. Cheers, Dave.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Altrincham.
We'll get onto Altrincham in a minute.
Yeah, onwards then to the playoff debacle, because the playoff of a table situation has finished with, of course, Chesterfield with the runaway leaders in the National League. Then a Barnet and Bromley in second and third. Excuse me, I'll try again. Barnet and Bromley second and third. And then the playoff breaks come along. And, it's 4 good-looking teams on the face of it. You've got Altrincham in 4, Solihull Moors, Gateshead, and then Halifax. And you think this is going to make for some really good semi-finals. And then yesterday, the day afterwards, the news came out that Gateshead weren't allowed to compete in the playoffs, basically. They had failed to meet the criteria to join the EFL and become a member club of the EFL. I mean, I'll be honest, I feel horrendous for them because they have failed on the council not giving Gateshead Football Club the security of having 10 years at the International Stadium. Of all the things to not partake for, your local council,
if there's any chance we could get, that monkey gif that they put up for people that look nervous and the eyes just look left and right constantly and it looks worried, could we have that for Calderdale Council and Halifax? Gateshead in trouble, Halifax doing the little eyes from the monkey.
Well, I know you've been critical, Teresa, of Calderdale Council over the course of the season, and understandably so, but I feel like Gateshead Borough Council have just trumped them in how bad they can be. Yeah,
they've certainly had an ace up that sleeve. I mean, there's been various viewpoints that I've gathered on social media from Gateshead have known since I think officially it was the 28th of March. Almost there'd been a meeting. They almost knew they couldn't compete in the playoffs, but then you destroy the integrity of the playoffs if you come out and say, well, one of our actual teams that's more than likely going to get into the playoffs actually can't compete. You affect results. Gateshead know they can't get there. They take the foot off the gas. Other teams, it ruined. I understand why it's come out now, because one, Gateshead might not have got there anyway, and you don't really have to say anything, but you'd destroy the integrity of the league. But just on the National League, I know we've actually given a little bit of a hammer in the FA Cup special when I brought up they seem to be for scrapping replays. As far as I'm aware, with the statements that I've read, the National League have done everything that they could to put Gateshead's case forward to get into the EFL, but it's been more the EFL are like, look, these are the rules. There's not a lot we can really do. These rules are in place, and that you sign up every year. You know what the deal is. Like I say, I think the National League have been in Gateshead's corner. They've tried to fight their corner as much as possible. Gateshead Council have sort of gone into the we want Gateshead to do well, and obviously we understand, but at the same time you're properly out because you can't guarantee what is needed for this club. I think Gateshead have been looking to build a ground that is just exclusively a football stadium for dare I say 15 to 20 years, and for whatever reason that hasn't materialized.
I don't get it, Dave. Sorry to jump in. I don't get it. Why would you? Why would you, as a council? Why would you not want? Because let's be honest. What other reason are people going to Gateshead?
Okay, so Gateshead International Stadium is an athletic stadium.
Right. How much money does that bring in with athletics? Probably not a lot, I'm guessing.
There's a few people, from what I've heard rumblings, and it's not anything official. I've heard words that basically, because football's played at the athletic stadium, it affects, I don't know exactly what it means, but it affects the Olympic status of that as an athletics venue. Because football's played there. I don't know, Steve. Yeah, this is just what I've heard. I don't know.
But yet the Olympics want football to be.
I know it's a strange one. It's something to do with because football's played there. It can't get some kind of Olympic status, or it can't something to do with the athletics. There's a behind the scenes clash between athletic sports being there. I mean, they can do track and field. I think they've got everything there. Obviously, it's got a running track, hurdles. I think there's some kind of conflict there, and it's all been happening in the background, and nobody's really been talking about it. But as you say, it's such a baffling.
So is this a hint? No. Is this a hint that Gateshead are applying to host the 2040 Olympic Games?
Probably, yeah. Be like a host venue. I guess I don't know. But I know for certain Gateshead have looked to play at their own ground or build or have their own ground for must be nearly 20 years, and they've been at Gateshead International Stadium. They've reached a playoff final 10 years ago this year. They got beat by Cambridge United. They've been down to the north, almost liquidated when that happened. They've come back. They've had Mike Williamson, who's gone on to MK Dons. They've had a load of really good players. Some of them moved with Williamson. They seem to have gone. There seem to be a seamless handing. Excuse the pun, but the passing of the baton between Williamson and it's Rob Elliott, I believe, is it? Who's in there now? You know, I mean, it's almost as if they had like a faultless transition almost, and they've obviously got themselves up there. Where Gateshead, do you know what it is? It's nothing to do with anything that they've put out. They know they haven't beat us for 20 years, so rather than try and have a go at us in the playoffs, they've gone, do you know what? Might as well save ourselves the bother because Halifax will beat us by hook or by crook. So
I'm sure that's it, Dave. I'm sure that's it, mate. That 100%.
That possibly could be it. No, we're making light of a very serious situation, in all honesty. Yeah, it's terrible.
The way things kind of played out then yesterday was that the first statement went out to say that Gateshead couldn't partake in the playoffs.
Yes.
At that stage, the restructuring of the playoffs that the National League have put out in the statement, which is going to be, I'm going to cough again, this is really annoying, was going to be fourth place Altrincham against Halifax, who finished 7th.
That's right.
Solihull Moors would get the bye.
Yeah.
That was also, they'd rechecked the rule book and were like, that's not really fair on Altrincham because they finished higher than Solihull Moors. So Alty then get the bye, and you get a different opponent on Wednesday night in travelling to Solihull instead of to Manchester.
Yeah. And also, Altrincham, who get a bye and don't have to play midweek, get an extra 24 hours rest. We're going to play a game on the Wednesday and have to play, if we get through, we're going to have to play Barnet on the Saturday, whereas Altrincham, who haven't had to play, have the luxury of another 24 hours rest, whether that'll work in their favour or not. But on the flip, Altrincham finished 4th. They finished high. They finished higher than Halifax. They have every right to have that. Yeah. You know, Millington's making no excuses for, you know, we touched on it with the ground thing. So as a supporter, as somebody who's behind Chris Millington, I've got to follow his lead and be like, we've got to just deal with what it is. We've got into the playoffs. We finished 7th, irrelevant of what was happening with Altrincham and Gateshead. We still have on paper the hardest run because we're going to be away, and then we're at Wembley. We all knew that was what was going to happen if we finished 7th or 6th. It suits us in the fact that we don't have to play any games at the Shea, so we don't have to sweat on our game's going to be on or off because that's then now on the host. It's on Solihull to host the game. It'll be on Barnet to host the game. You know what I mean? So there's been a good number of hurdles thrown up in front of Halifax. And just quickly before we move on with the National League, some people argued, well, why not put Aldershot in? They finished 8th, but at the beginning of the season, there's like a clause in the Vanarama. I think it'd be for all the 3 leagues, National, North and South. There's obviously like rules and guidelines that basically say the top 7 finish as the top 7. The EFL will not accept 8th going in to replace someone. The top 7, that's it. It doesn't move. If somebody drops out, they have to do this kind of restructure. You can't just put Aldershot in. I know Southend will feel hard done by, because if they didn't have their 10 points knocked off, they would be in the playoffs now, either at Halifax's expense or at the expense of Gateshead. So they're a little bit aggrieved. But I mean, if we're just sticking with Halifax, we've more than deserved to finish 7th after those hurdles of having to play Accrington twice, Chesterfield. Touched on it. We had to go to Eastleigh 36 hours later, and we've turned in a great performance. Millington, again, a little bit of a masterstroke. Wasn't playing Andrew Walla-Wabore. He even dropped him. He set up all 3 goals on Saturday. Okay, one of them was a shot and it deflected off an Eastleigh defender and fell for Aidan George, but Walla-Wabore set up all of those 3 goals, and him coming on in the second half against Ebbsfleet, where it had 0-0 written all over it. I don't want to say he was the only player that was pushing to try and get a winner, but he was the one that were taking 4 and 5 men on and having a shot and it ballooning wide, and I'm giving it past the ball. There may have been another word in there, but then on another day, he doesn't pass the ball and he puts it in the back of the net and we win the game. So he's just one of those players, and everything. It's just that's going well. Sorry.
Just as an outsider looking in, Dave, what do you think your chances are in playoffs? Do you go in there thinking we've got a decent chance of going up, or do you look at it and think it's going to be a really, really tough ask and we're probably outsiders?
I said this on last week's show, guys. If we turn up, how I know it's a little bit like what you've said. Like in terms, I know you've described perfectly a mid-table team where it's like we win 3, we lose 3, we win 3, we lose 3. That's why you're mid-table. It's a little bit the same I feel in the playoffs. If we turn up and we play as well as I've seen us play this year, we will win these playoffs. But on the flip, if we're going to be a little bit like we've had a few games where supporters have been at games, have said we've had 5 behind ball, we've played 2 defensive midfielders, we've been dead conservative. There's no good standing off them. I think we tried to do it against Barnet recently when we were at Accrington and we got punished for it. You know what I mean? We have to have Walla-Wabore running at people. We need Florent Hottie playing well and not being injured or carrying anything. If we click in these playoffs, I have no doubt that we'll win them, guys. I really think that. I think we've got a point to prove against Solihull. They beat us 3-1 at the Shea. I think February, March. We didn't play great, and there were even a few. I think there may have even been people calling for Millie to go then, and it were like when whatever 7th, 8th, 9th. We've got a point to prove against Solihull, and we've got a point to prove if we get through against Barnet. I'm hoping that Barnet don't. I'm hoping Barnet almost rest on the laurels and think, well, yeah, we put 2 past them recently, and it were a bit of sort of quite easy. I can't see them taking that approach, but if that's what they do, they're going to get punished. If we get through, I think we'll beat Barnet. And there'll be a cruel irony, though, if we get to Barnet and lose, because the away end, if you're in the away end at Barnet, you can see the arch of Wembley over the other side. You can literally see Wembley.
Yeah. I've not been to the Hive. I've been to Underhill, but I've never been to the Hive.
Oh, Dave, don't be like that. That breaks my heart, mate.
We've been to Wembley twice in 7 years, and we've won twice, and we haven't conceded a goal. But I went there 10 years ago, and we beat them 4-0, and Gregory got his 100th goal. And I looked at that Wembley arch, and I thought, will we ever get there? I could vision, you could see it. You could see Wembley Stadium from Barnet. And I mean, if Barnet lose, they'll have a Barnet podcast where the guys like, we literally have a home game, or we have a home ground where we can see like the promised land of Wembley. And I don't think Barnet have been since it's been refurbed. I don't think they even went to the old one. So again, it's like 6 and 2 threes. But if we turn up to answer the question shortly, guys, if we turn up, we'll win the playoffs. If we don't, we're going to go out and we're just going to go out on a whimper. It'll go one of 2 ways.
That's amazing. That's amazing to hear someone who says, like, if we turn, you know what I mean? Really confident.
Yeah, I really believe that. I really, really believe that. Like, if Rob Harker, I don't know, like, sometimes he's quite a big lad for a centre forward. You know what I mean? He's got a centre forward's build. Sometimes he seems to be knocked off the ball a bit easy, and they'll put 2 and 3 men on him, and he just hasn't got the. He's not streetwise to it, because I mean he's still only very young. I think he's only 23 himself. There's games where ball will come to him and he can just turn and score. And there's other games where it's literally like Steve could be playing up front for us, and he'd probably put in a similar shift. Like Harker's very hot and cold, but our whole team. You know, I've said it loads of times. It's a very young team. It must be one of the youngest teams in the National League. You know, they're here for a reason. They've come out of academies, or they've been at league teams, or they need to put themselves back in the shop window, and that's where we're at. And who knows? I mean, honestly, if we turn up, we will win these.
So
we will win these.
Thought then for Halifax then, because obviously the very sudden change of opponent, you know, how it was originally going to be LTM and then a couple hours later it's Solihull. Will that really have affected anything from Chris Millington's perspective? Will he have been more than likely prepping? I think because of the way the tables fall, it was very likely we were not anyway. Will there have been, you know, a lot of the prep done before this announcement? It's suddenly a last-minute scramble to get all your analysts in and sort the clips out and that sort of thing? Or do you actually think they'll just deal with it as best they can and get on with the job in hand, and whatever happens Wednesday happens?
I mean, I'd certainly think he's got 5 other scouting reports on other teams. Obviously, Altrincham have dropped out. We've covered it. I think he'll have a basic idea, but it's Solihull for supporters is 2.5 hours, and it also kicks off at 7 o'clock. Like the coaches are leaving at 3, half 3, all that kind of stuff.
I don't know.
It suits TNT Sport because it'd be live on the telly, and we've done well on the TV actually this year, which is very unlike us. We usually don't really turn up in the TV games. The other ace up our sleeve, and I don't really know if I need to reveal this, is should any of these games go to penalties, we've got Sam Johnson in goal, and we do not lose. We've only lost one penalty shootout with Sam Johnson in between those sticks.
That feels like the worst kept secret you could have revealed.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
how many years now?
I mean, I said it. Did I say it on our previous show? If we win these playoffs, he will run out on his 400th appearance as an EFL goalkeeper.
That was it. Yeah,
that'd be amazing. That'd be totally amazing.
I'm sad though, guys. Like, I really want you to do well, but obviously, if you get to the final, we're not going to see you on the 5th.
That's it, innit? That's the one. That's the one downside.
To be fair, if Halifax make the final, we might have to take a West Yorkshire Football Show trip to Wembley. You never know.
God.
No, we've all agreed to play now. You can't jump out.
Yeah,
we can jump in that box you were organising.
Yeah, there'll be a box. But no, Altrincham or Solihull, I don't think Chris Millington will be too bothered. As supporters, the general vibes being pretty much the same. They're like, you know, Altrincham have only really I think they've only beaten us in the trophy this year, and that was the penalty shootout loss for Johnson. We drew at home with them and we beat them 2-1 away. I mean, they've got Chris Clark, who's like probably the best midfielder in the National League, and he can change a game. They've got their own game changer, but we've got game changers in our team. We've got Hottie, Olawabore, as I've said, Harker. We've got a good defence. Like we just have nobody to fear. We're good away from home. We're having to play every game away from home. Like, you know, if it comes to penalties, we're pretty good at penalty shootouts. Hopefully that record isn't tarnished or broken. Things are sort of. We've come up against it. We've thoroughly deserved this playoff place, and the amount of hurdles. You know what I mean? We really deserve a good crack at this.
I think that's certainly going to be the mantra that they'll take into it. It's going to be all about bring on Solihull for Wednesday night. You can't make it, can you, due to work?
No, I can't. No. Well, either Wednesday or Thursday, and I couldn't make either game. I also can't make Saturday if we do get through to that semi-final. But the Wembley weekend, I am off. I'll you know. I can go. I have a record. Millington's been our manager for 2 seasons now. And I think off the top of my head, I want to say I've seen about 15, 16 games. We've only ever lost once. As Chris Millington as manager and me being present at the ground, we've lost once. So I am actually a good luck charm, and I'm going to miss Wednesday and I'm going to miss Saturday. So they need to do it without me.
I'm sure
it'll probably change anyway, Dave. It'll probably change to a Sunday, like they did on Saturday.
It could do. Altrincham could still get back in it now, or they could just flip a coin and decide that Boreham Wood aren't going to be relegated and they are actually, in fact, in the playoffs. Honestly, anything could happen. But yeah, at the moment, everything seems to have settled down. We're playing Solihull. Altrincham are going through, have got to buy into the semi-final and an extra 24 hours to rest. But they did a poll on Facebook and they did, thumbs up for one team, smiley face for another. Halifax were bottom of that that poll. I don't know how many of you saw it, and I commented and I said, under the radar, nobody expects us, and that's just the way I like it. Because I've had it before. My dad's a bit like, he's like, we'll watch us on TNT Sport, and he's like, we never get any praise. And I've always said the same thing. I've said, I don't care how much we're on, how much praise they give us, as long as they show us lift the trophy in May at the end of the season, I really couldn't care less. As long as they just show us win it at the end, they can give us as much praise or criticise us, show us as much as you want, or as little as you want, just show us lifting the trophy at the end of the season, and that's all I want to see. I'm not bothered.
I'm with you. That's all that matters, Dave. At the end of the day, who cares about anything else? That's what matters.
I agree.
That is confidence. Dave, all the best for Wednesday. We'll see what it brings, and we'll speak to you on next week's show, no doubt, as well. Let's finally then turn our attentions to the rest of our non-league scene. And Lewis, it's been a bit of a busy one over the course of the weekend. Highs and lows, though, for our regional sides. Starting with the National League North and for Farsley Celtic, they managed to pull it off. The great escape on the final day, going into that final day in the final relegation space. But Brackley, up in the northeast, travelling to Blythe, did them quite the favour, as well as them doing their own work of that win against Buxton.
Yeah, wow, what a final day to the National League North season, and it's one of those stories that Farsley Celtic are just kind of rewriting the history and survive somehow, hanging on by a thread, but keep on doing it year on year. Should have never been in this situation, but when you lose 1 in 12, other teams around, you're starting to pick up the result. You find yourself in that situation, and at 3 o'clock, both teams, both them and Blythe, are on 50 points. Blythe had 9 goals better off. All Farsley needed to do was basically better the result or potentially scored about 7 goals. And within a quarter of an hour, that dramatic day feel just disappeared for Farsley fans, which has been absolute heaven for them, because they didn't have to refresh the account, they didn't have to refresh the feeds, or kind of old school, get the radio to the ears. It was already done and dusted, because Brackley were 2-0 up and Farsley were winning 1-0 against Buxton. And being honest, Blythe were never going to come back 2-0 down to Brackley, because Brackley just don't concede, pretty much like Halifax. Yeah. And I think it got worse. I've seen comments, I've seen YouTube videos around the game at Blythe. There's a lot of anger there. I know that takeover just got confirmed this week, but wow, there's a bit of work to do there. And from what I've heard and what I've seen, the performance on Saturday was just unacceptable. Brackley are a good team, there's no doubt about that, but the form that Blythe have been on is just been absolutely horrific, and it was no coincidence really when you find 2 teams struggling in form, battling it out. And for our region, it's great news. Farsley have stayed up. And I've seen the chairman's come out with a statement today as well. You know what? It's fair. Let's be honest, Farsley, in the grand scheme of things, is a village. It's a tiny village. A lot of clubs in that division are far, far bigger, with probably bigger resources, bigger catchment area for people to come and watch them. And let's be honest, Farsley have got, the likes of Leeds on the doorstep, Bradford City on the doorstep as well. And they've done remarkable to stay in that division. What I will say is, without sounding pessimistic, if I were a Farsley Celtic player, fan, official, I'd really enjoy this moment, because I will argue, I think next season is going to be a whole lot tougher in that division, with the teams coming up, the teams coming down. You've got Kidderminster coming down, you've got Radcliffe coming up, who've got all the experience in the world. Market Needham have stormed the league. You've potentially got Telford coming back in there, Michelova coming back in there.
Could you have Macclesfield in the playoffs in Radcliffe's league as well?
Yeah, Macclesfield. There's going to be like some Macclesfield Marine potentially coming up. Yeah. I know Warrington and Rylands are still in there as well, and Hyde. Yeah. But listen, next season, I'd be surprised if you're going to get a team that struggled as much as what Bishop Stortford have and Gloucester and Banbury. I think it's going to be a whole lot tighter. So that's not to take away the achievement Farsley have done. Remarkable achievement. On paper it looked a tough ask, but they've comfortably beaten Buxton, who, albeit in midweek, have won their, kind of district trophy, which, silverware at the end of the day, which is great. And I think we were going into it kind of probably on last legs, really. And Craig Elliott's last game just came at the wrong time for him. But Farsley perspective, enjoy it, make the most of it. But I would say there's a lot of work to do to get that squad and that club in a situation where they can be looking up rather than going down.
Yeah. Into the Northern Premier League, as you mentioned, Radcliffe, the league winners. Guiseley, they had their penultimate home game of the season, a good win against FC United of Manchester by 3-1. At the other end of the table, look, we kind of wondered for a little while when it was likely to happen, and sadly for Park Avenue, relegation confirmed on Saturday.
Yeah, the inevitable happened. The light was at the end of the tunnel for a little bit. Probably midway through that second half, it was pretty much distinguishing that first half. And let's be honest, it was a horror show. Gainsborough came out and had a very faint hope of getting into the playoffs, and absolutely steamrolled us. Some really poor goals conceded, just naivety. And at half-time, 3-0 down, which just looked impossible to come back from. But I'll give some of the lads credit. James Hansen came on at half-time, transformed away with play. It was the old school, hit it the big man and play off of flick-ons. Win the first contacts, get the second balls, and you know what? It works in those kind of situations. And Jake Daniels came on as well and had a wow of the second half. And people obviously got asking questions as to why both of them weren't starting the game. I get that. The argument is I don't think Hansen's probably fit enough, if I'm being honest, to probably play longer than 45 minutes. I think 45 minutes was absolute maximum. Jake Daniels hasn't been great either in the past few weeks, but, when you need players to come on and change a game, they were very effective. And albeit we could have probably won it in the final minute if we hadn't put it straight at the goalkeeper and it hadn't gone either side. I will go into a little bit more.
You went 3-0 down and nearly won it 4-3.
Yeah. Against Gainsborough, who were done reasonably well in recent weeks as well. And, they went down to 10 men, which didn't help them. But let's be honest, Avenue in many scenarios haven't been great. And one of them has been when teams have gone down to 10 men, Avenue haven't won. We've kept that record, but we were very close to coming back to it. There's a whole lot of issues, which I know we'll talk about in a tiny bit. But the game was encouraging in the second half to see what the players are capable of. But, it's come too little too late. And a salt in the wound was when Baseford had scored a 100th minute equaliser at Radcliffe. To absolutely confirm relegation, which sees Bayford stay up. Stafford Rangers go down with ourselves and Atherton Collieries. And obviously Maskew couldn't finish the season. So for Baseford, it's a remarkable achievement. But for Park Avenue, it's a successive relegation and it's just completely and wholly unacceptable.
It's going to be something that we'll be talking about, obviously, for the next couple of weeks and over the course of the summer. We look ahead to next season for Avenue, but you can kind of briefly try and sum up where the priority should be for Danny Whittaker, for Tom Stravic, for those at the club to get prepared correctly for next season.
You say briefly because if I carry on, I might be linking in with Jay and Brownie to finish this Leeds game, if I'm being honest. I know exactly what you're trying to do. There's a lot of work to do. The club, in the situation it is just not right. You don't go down twice in 2 years if something's not right. I know the owner, Gareth Roberts, was over on Saturday. And how can I put this? Not many people were there to speak to him, if I'm being honest. Also, the end of the game and the situation about relegation, there wasn't an actual owner statement, which was, again, silence is deafening. There's a lot of questions being asked, a whole load of questions, which we've repeated over this podcast and over the past 2-3 years. But let's be brutally honest. The decks need to be cleared. And I know from what we've discussed before, that squad needs changing. We rewarded people who were relegated last year with contracts. Now, the odd few is acceptable, but, let's be honest, we're pretty much starting the season with not far off the same team, minus Sam Fielding and Reece Staunton. So the decks need to be cleared. Danny Whittaker needs to be backed by the owner, who is putting the money in, and financially to support what the first team need. I get there's the juniors and academy set up, which has been structured and formed by the likes of Tom and Gary and Owen and the rest of the guys, and that's doing well. But here's my call out to Gareth: back the first team. That is what people are coming to come and watch on Saturday at 3:00, because what has happened over the past 2 seasons is not acceptable.
It's almost negligent.
Simple as that. And now we've got to a point where Avenue, with the greatest respect to Riz, we're now talking about the neighbours who were 4, 5, 6 divisions below are potentially going to be in the same league as Avenue. Avenue at the moment have paid staff on the books, close to probably about 10 people, and we're going to be in the Northern Premier League East. We look at the likes of probably Albion and Campion, who don't have that cost overhead. And we're talking about making the club sustainable. Before a ball has been kicked, Gareth or wherever the money is coming from has to be paid for people's salaries in a Northern Premier League East. That is not right. And what is happening now is that Avenue are getting a reputation for not being good enough on the pitch, for having issues off the pitch. And if you're a player wanting to come in, there's a massive amount that Danny and Tom, and I know this firsthand, are working day and night, hours, to try and convince players that Avenue are going to be the right club to come to. But we get the situation on Saturday. We open up the ground for admission for season ticket holders for various clubs. Was it half time? Just before half time, announcement came on a Tannoy night. This is what it was. We've got bad news, everyone. The cafe's run out of food. We're 3-0 down before the half-time whistle, with people coming in to potentially watch Avenue for the first time, and the bad news is we've run out of food. The bad news is what we're seeing on the pitch. The bad news is run out of food when you're bringing people in who are potentially watching the club for the first time, having their first impressions, and you haven't got food at half-time for people to eat. That is not acceptable. Whatever we say, and the owner's there to see it. And if that doesn't get picked up on, then we might as well close the club and go away. It's little things that actually amount to huge issues, and this is what the club is finding at the moment. It's falling over itself. So what's got to happen now is Gareth apparently is over for the next week and a half, 2 weeks. He has got to work with the likes of Tom, with Danny, with Callum and the rest of the guys to make sure that next season we are ready. By bringing people together, by having a squad that's fit enough, that's ready enough to go from day one, because Avenue have had probably some of the worst starts to a season that many a club in this region have had. And I think, was it last season we didn't win the first 10, which is just ridiculous. So the squad got to be looked at. We've got to convince the right people. You've got to create a process that that players want to come and join the club. You've got to get off the field right, because at the moment it isn't working. And like I said, you've got to make sure that the first team is backed financially, because without that, Avenue will stagnate in the East and possibly, and this hurts me to say, may even go down again, because it's no coincidence that the club has suffered successful relegations. So over these 2 weeks, there's got to be some really honest conversations happening at the level of the club to not let this happen again. And what I will say is that I know that there's some people in that club are absolutely determined to do that. There's fractions within the fan base, whether they like Danny or not. There's questions being asked about his tactics. There's been questions about his ability as a manager. Whatever that looks like, the club now need to just somehow get rid of the negativity and toxic energy around the place by having this set out plan, process, whatever you want to call it. And I'll be honest, my first call would be get everybody in the club at the same time. Again, have some really honest conversations. Some conversations people are not going to like. It might get slightly personal. But I tell you what, that clear the air talks needs to happen, because it hasn't happened. And there was an opportunity there on Saturday to happen. It didn't happen after relegation. There's people applauding because I'm sorry, guys, to bring this up after your quote the other week. At full time, we've been relegated. There's people applauding. There's people applauding the fact that we may have just come close to maybe getting a win, but we've still gone down. And I think, to your point, Gaz, apathy's so dangerous.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing people going, well, it's kind of been on the cards and it don't feel as bad as last year. We've been relegated again. How can not being relegated from the Northern Premier League be less kind of significant than it was to losing out from the National League North? We're potentially going, again, with no disrespect, because these clubs have done extremely well to be where they are. But 5-6 years ago, we're in a different stratosphere, the likes of potentially Brighouse, Ossett, Ponty. These are clubs like at Ponty. You've got to use them as a role model now to build yourself on, because Ponty, they've built strong foundations. They've got a squad that, again, isn't the most easy on the eye, but where don't they get results? Don't they really push teams close in that division? And now what we're finding at Avenue is just decline after decline after decline for the past 6-7 years. And it's just got to stop. And this next 2 weeks, for me, is vital to the club's future. And that sounds dramatic, but I actually really seriously do think that, because there's people there, if they don't get the way that they think that they can take the club forward, it wouldn't surprise me if they left, and then we'll be in a massive, massive heap of trouble.
Well, there we go.
That was a positive way to end, wasn't it?
No problem. Thanks, guys. Yeah. What can we say though? This is the situation the Avenue have found themselves in. What club? We're not talking. Weirdly enough, we're not talking about a club which has had a situation where it's been financially ridden or whatever. You see occasions of clubs going in administration or owners just leaving out of nowhere. There's the gratefulness for Gareth to give them money out, and nobody's disputing that at all. But we've seen a side that should, and it's completely avoidable, should not be going down. This year should have been cementing in the Northern Premier League, or potentially at the most, absolutely looking towards the playoffs.
Yeah.
But poor recruitment, poor decisions off the field, again, has contributed to it as a second relegation. It's absolutely not right.
Not at all. And look, time will tell, won't it, over the course of the next couple of weeks in the shorter term with what needs to happen, and then also, of course, the longer term and over the summer to kind of reset for life in the Northern Premier League East. I'm going to kind of wrap it up there because I'm very conscious that in a little over 5 minutes or so, Jay and Steve Brownie will be on with their live match reaction to the Leeds game, which I believe ran out as a Leeds win. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong.
Not yet.
4-2.
4-3.
They've won 4-2.
4-3.
4-3. Come on, Borough. Go on, lads.
Oh, it is 4-3.
Believe in the Borough.
Well,
how long's left? There must be seconds left, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Is Rebecca Walsh the referee? Give it.
Steve, stop watching the match. Concentrate. Focus. Come on. Come up to us. I know it's been a long 2 hours nearly.
I'm watching it.
Anyway,
I'm not watching it.
Jay and Brownie, they'll be on from, as soon as the final whistle goes up at the Riverside for their full live match reaction. They'll be onto the YouTube channel straight away. I'm sure if Middlesbrough get a late equaliser to make it 4 apiece, that will be well worth the watch, and less worth the watch if they actually win the game. It is what it is. But thank you, as always, to the regular contributors, Steve Downs, Dave Foy, Gareth Walker, Lewis Sale. Big thank you to Rzan Muhammad as well, the manager of Albion Sports, the Bradford-based Northern Counties East League team. On Saturday, if you're not going to a game, perhaps if Bradford City lose at Barrow tomorrow night and the playoff dream is over, get yourself down to Campion versus Albion Sports in the playoffs, the Northern Counties East League playoffs, at 3 o'clock kickoff on Saturday. That'll do us then. From myself and the rest of us, enjoy the rest of your evening. All the best for Jay and Brownie and their review. They're starting very, very soon here on the West Yorkshire Football Show YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you.